Okay, here we are back at the engine, and we've got the piston here, number 3 home. We zoomed in on number 3. I'll let you see what we're doing more or less if we can. Now, we haven't got the conrod bearings in at this stage, so the conrod bearings, they don't have an oil groove in them at all, because the oil for your conrod comes from your main bearing through your crank. So we just locate that in the little locator. Bring that through there. I usually put the conrod bolts in. Now's when we have to remember which way the pistons went. Whether the numbers went to the conrod, to the cam, or away. I'm pretty sure the numbers went away from the cam, but I will check that. But what we need to do is wipe this bore, make sure the bore is really clean, make sure all your gear's clean, and the ring compressor. I like this over centre type one. There's a heap of different sorts of these things around, so just use the one you're comfortable with. We need to put a heap of oil around the bore. A heap of oil all over the piston. Put the numbers away from the cam. And I usually try and get the journal of the crank facing straight down. Some you can't because of the web, but then we need to adjust our little clamp up a bit. Now's also when you look where your ring grooves are again, or where your ring gaps are would be more to the point. I'll just loosen that a little. You want it to be a nice sliding fit. You want it to compress the rings but be a sliding fit, so I can adjust this back just a little bit. So our ring groove down the bottom here, we'll just check the position of that. The next one up we need to check. Because as you play with the piston over time, these ring grooves can get out of whack. Where you thought they were, they aren't necessarily there. So now we just slide the ring compressor over. Make sure you're down onto the ring. If you're not onto the ring, it's a good way to break them. And so that bottom ring's now started. That gives me the opportunity to clamp this next one. Often the STD and that goes to the front anyway. So the piston's in. Now, we need to line up the conrod on the bottom there with the bearing journal. So you should be able to press them down with your hand. But certainly guide it down and do not let the conrod bolts mark the crank. This one's clear. So at this stage we could roll it around, roll the engine over, one conrod bolt. The conrod bolt's a little bit loose really, but anyway, that's how they are sometimes. And some of the oil from the bore actually gets on the bottom bearing, but I do like to actually put a bit more there. Making sure this is all clean, of course. And in this instance, I couldn't actually have the, because of this counterweight here, I couldn't actually have it straight down, or the conrod where it's fatter down the bottom here wouldn't have matched, wouldn't have lined up. So in this instance, we need to go across, put a bit of oil down the hole. And we should be able to pull that, or even turn the crank so it lines up. I'll clean this bolt. I've already fitted the bearing into the cap, so we'll give that a liberal bit of oil. Now we need to make sure, you can see the little shadow mark there. There's a shadow from where it lined up last time. So we drop that over the top, making sure this bolt's all lined up nicely. And at this stage, I often use the old nuts. It might be easier to see. I use the old nuts here because sometimes it's good to flexi gauge the bottom end, the same as we did to the mains. That bolt isn't quite lining up. There, now it is. This is the first little clip we've used both cameras. We have one here and one there. So I'm seeing how it works, seeing how the footage works. We may swap around a little bit, I'll just see. I don't know yet. And that turns nicely. Now we can flexi gauge the bottom end, same as we did on the mains. I'm not going to in this instance, but we can do it. Now, a point of interest with doing the rings, There's a bit of a diagram there with them, but it says, yeah, with dull black bolts, 60 foot-pounds, with CAD silver bolts, CAD like these, 45, or self-locking 70. So I don't know how they worked all that out, but anyway. So this one for the moment will .61 Newton meters. There, so. Right, so I've used the old nuts there, and the reason is in case we need to change something, in case the bearing's nipped up wrong or something like that. So we can give the engine a turn again. We can turn the crank, and I just use a shifting spanner on the front. And after each piston goes in, you should do that. And just make sure that you're okay, you're happy with it. And I'm very happy with that. So we'll put the rest in, and then in the end I actually go and change all the nuts. Once I know everything's right, I change the nuts over. Last week when we did the main bearings, we measured the end float on the crank, and we had 10 thousandths of an inch, and the spec was 2 to 11 thou. So we were right up on the loose end. So what I've done this last week is I found some 7.5 thousandths of an inch oversized thrusts. So we're going to pull this cap off once they come. They'll be here this week, and we'll put the wider thrusts on, and that'll take us to 3 thou crank end float, and that's ideal. That's where we'd like to be. We're on the small end of the crank end float, yet we're still within spec. So we'll put all the rest in, we'll tension them down, and yeah, we'll move along to something else.